All right. Hi, everyone. So it's early morning here in Italy and late afternoon in Melbourne, Australia, where the wonderful Lucy Bartholomew lives. Today, I'm just very thankful for the opportunity to sit down and talk to her. It's actually the first time we meet, even if it's just through a computer screen for the moment. And as many of you know, Lucy is only 25 years old, so she's 4 years younger than me, but she's been in the sport of ultra running for over a decade now. The main reason why we got in touch and decided to record this podcast was that she just released a new movie, which is called Running Out, and tells the story of Lucy running the Larapinta Trail. The Larapinta Trail is a 231-kilometer trail running from Mount Sonder to Alice Spring in the wild Australian outback in a region named Australian Northern Territory, if I'm correct. Alice Spring, just to put that into context, is about 1,500 kilometers from two of the biggest and most well-known Australian cities, which are Darwin and Adelaide. So it's like really, really in the middle of nowhere. And the Larapinta Trail goes through some of the world's most remote and ancient places. And that's where the movie Running Out takes place. And that's what we will ask Lucy and kind of try to go into detail. The movie actually reminded me a little bit about Jimmy Chin's movie featuring Alex Honnold in Free Solo, because I think it's not so common to see a movie from a sort of niche sport like climbing or trail running, even though they're becoming more popular. So I'm very glad that Lucy took the chance to tell her story, this story, to share what trail running can be about, to show her home country, all the beautiful places that the movie brings us through. So let's just dive straight into that, and please welcome the wonderful Lucy Bartholomew. Ciao, Lucy.
Hi, thank you so much. I know that Brian Hines, who put together Running Out, will be incredibly pleased to be thinking about like Jimmy Chin's movie. So I think he will be incredibly happy with that opening.
Yeah, that's one of the main thoughts that I had after watching the movie, and also after I watched Free Solo. I don't know if it'll ever end up in Hollywood, but it's kind of cool to have a movie from our sport and to go we don't have to compare that to Free Solo, which is very famous, but it was kind of cool to just watch it and think about it in this way.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that a lot. I think, I know that Brian did use a lot of kind of inspiration from Jimmy Chin. And I think Free Solo with Alex Honnold, I know this is not about his movie, but I think that what I loved and resonated so much with his movie was how raw and honest, and there was ups and there was downs and there was hardship and then there was success. And I think that what I really wanted to present in this movie was show that whole journey and be completely honest and raw about it, because there's a lot of running films out there. No doubt there are beautiful mountain films and coastal films and desert films, but I feel like we glorify running and it's very aesthetically pleasing, and the runner's always got a beautiful stride and super happy. And yes, that's an aspect, but it's like in my decade in the sport, there's always been moments of that's not what it looks like. And I wanted to show that.
Yeah, and it definitely shows. So we're gonna go straight into that, not tell too much about it, because we want our listeners to kind of get interested and go and watch the movie. But first of all, I would like to ask you how you're doing and what you've been up to recently, besides probably receiving some great feedback about the movie and having to attend some meeting and respond to all the people texting you about the movie.
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's since doing the Larapinta back in March, it's been this, crazy journey of creating this film and putting it together. And it felt like the longest ultra of my life, just watching myself back and back again. And we haven't had races in Australia, so it's kind of not a lot to distract me. I was running afterwards, but not so much. And then we had the release on November 2, which was, you never know what the reaction's going to be. And it's very vulnerable to put something out there that, like I said, is just so me. I think on Instagram, we can curate how we're presented, and we can curate what we say, we can edit, we can delete comments. But this film is, a very personal to me, and it was a dream of mine that I brought to life. And it didn't go amazingly, but it didn't go badly. And I think that what I really wanted to make sure people knew before it went out was that I take myself to a pretty deep hole in the movie, but I'm not trying to say that this is what you need to do something cool and amazing. And I kind of wanted to just be really aware of the fact that this was it's a challenging thing that I did. And that was, I just kind of really wanted to make sure that message came across. And then the response has been just so positive and so beautiful. My story on Instagram is just resharing of people watching it all around the world, with their dogs, with a meal, with their friends. And I just, I'm sure it's tedious to click through because you're like, okay, Lucy, we get it. But I'm just like, I appreciate so much that people would take a photo and tag and give me their feedback. And, for some people, it's like it got me out the door. For some people, it was like it made me want to visit Australia. And that's exactly what it's for. I just want to inspire, and kind of say that you can do things and to back yourself. And, it goes a long way just to believe in yourself and your team.
Yeah, this is pretty awesome, and I think it really stands out from the movie. As I said, like yesterday I was watching it, and like I encourage all the people to go and watch it. It's great. It gives you a really nice feeling of the purpose and the why you did that, and it's a great message. On an interview that you released for like the Wind magazine, I read you said, "I didn't need to chase a bib, but maybe chase my curiosity. I saw an opportunity to do something different in a year that was so incredibly different to the last 9 years I've been in the sport. I wanted to go back on how I started running into an unknown territory that breaks you down and builds you up. I wanted to remind myself what this sport is about, the people, places, and my passion, not bibs, racing, and times. I was drawn to the Larapinta track for many more reasons than the actual running aspect." So as you put on a comment on an Instagram post that Kirsten did for Vert.run, you wrote like, "My question is why?" Like we were asking our users for questions about the movie, and you commented your own post basically. So why? Where did this idea came from? And like you explained a little bit already, but can you like bring us through where this project was born and the people that helped you put it together and just create this awesome project?
Yeah, definitely. So when I started running, going back to when I was 15 years old in 2012, I ran 100 kilometers side by side with my dad. And I didn't do it to come first, to be fast. I did it because I was curious and I loved spending time with my dad. And, it was something for 12 and a half hours. All that mattered was us running, eating, drinking, and moving through this course. And for the first few years of my career, that's what I did. I said yes to anything. I did all the races. I was road, track, trail, mountain, desert, coast. I was there and I loved it. When things got more serious and I picked up like a sponsorship and I had obligations, I felt that there was a shift towards, like, I felt so much pressure that I was hesitant to do things that did chase my curiosity, in case, maybe it affected something that, like, someone else wanted me to do better and focus on more. And so when I finished third place at Western States in 2018, life changed for me in terms of my following on Instagram grew exponentially. And all these people were kind of like, oh, she's going to race and win all the time. And it really got to me in 2019. I will happily say that I completely imploded, mentally, physically, hormonally, spiritually. Everything kind of hit a pretty dark place, a pretty challenging place for anyone to navigate. And I was blessed. I was really lucky that when COVID came, I was like, this is amazing. I don't have to race. I don't have to travel. I can sit here, sort myself out, and ask myself why I'm doing this. Because I was waking up in the morning and I was like, I have to run, or I need to run. It wasn't I wanted to run. And when I kind of asked myself, do you want to do this? Why are you doing this? Go to university, go sit at a desk, do something normal. And when I thought of this Lara Pinter idea, it was the one thing that was just like, yes, like, this is cool. And this is what I love. And I love running, but I love running for bringing community together and exploring places. And when you put a time on it and a bib and competitors and expectations, I feel like it sheds a little bit of joy. So I think for me, I never put out that I was going to run the whole thing. I just saw a break in our 2 lockdowns, or our 7 lockdowns, and was like, all right, Josh, Brian, 2 mates, let's get in the car quickly. Let's drive. Let's run as far as we can. Let's go as fast as we can. And I just wanted to go back to 15-year-old Lucy's, like, 100K is a long way, but I'm going to do it. And it was like 230K is a long way, but I could do it, and just wanted to go back to that root of running, for curiosity, for people, for place, and not places being locations, not place in the rankings. Because I was kind of getting burnt out by all of that.
Yeah, I understand. And I think the movie itself tells a little bit about this story in a shorter time, because there is moments of like joy and great positivity, and also moments where things get hard, and you kind of go through a dark hole, as you said, also in the movie. So it tells a little bit the story of the last 10 years that you've lived, I think. And then, like, there is the aspect, well, trail running is, of course, part of it is about racing, is about competition, is about the community that is around this world, and part of it, like, is our own way to live the trail, to feel reconnected with the nature and the places that we run through, which I think is super important, and we should never forget about it, because it's not like we run in a track or we work out in a gym. We're out there in the nature, and that is something that we like. It's one of the main values, I think, of what we do.
Definitely. I think the Alice Springs area is incredibly Indigenous, and it's got incredible history. And I think that as an Australian, we stick with the coastlines. Melbourne's on the coast, Sydney's on the coast, Adelaide's on the coast. And I'd always kind of like, Australia is a big country and there is a lot of land in the middle. And I wanted to see what was out there. And to run the Lara Pinter track, you have to release yourself to the elements. You have to just be so calm and collected, because you get thrown so many things. And, we show a lot of those things in the film. You've got the heat, you've got the cold, you've got the animals, you've got the navigation, you've got like your own safety, you've got to eat, you've got to drink. Do you sleep? Do you not? And it's kind of this, you've got to just at some point just take a deep breath and be like, wow, like I am out here and I'm like out here. And that's like such a beautiful thing to be, because for some people, they get out of bed, they get in a car, they go sit at a desk, they get back in the car, they get to home, they eat their dinner, they go to bed. And for 3 days, all I did was run through those days. When those people were getting in the car, I was just taking steps forward. When they're sitting at their desk, I was taking my steps forward. And to think about that, that is such a gift and a privilege that I just kind of will never be able to fully appreciate, I don't think, because it was such a beautiful experience.
Yeah, definitely. Like the inner Australia, the desert, all the places that you ran through kind of give us an idea of how wild and big the place is. It's the middle of Australia. What was the weather, like the climate that you found during your run? And like, can you tell us some more details about it?
Yeah, definitely. So the incredible thing about when we did the run and this film takes place is that the Larapinta and Alice Springs, the Northern Territory, whatever you want to call it, is known for being super dry, really hot, very iconic Australia, red soil. It's what you see in all the tourism stuff for here, kangaroos, emus, just hanging out. And when we went to Alice Springs, there had been this massive amount of rainfall previous to us arriving. And so what were usually completely dry riverbeds that the Larapinta goes through, we actually had waist deep up to kind of shoulder deep water, which is just unreal for out there. And it meant that a lot of the grasses grew really quickly and it became really green. And I remember us driving in and we were like, this isn't what we expected. But it was so beautiful. It was so lush and it felt really kind of fresh. So the temperatures when I was running was about 32 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
So pretty warm.
Yeah.
And then at night was maybe like 17 to 18 degrees. So pretty mild. So I didn't need to put on a jacket or anything.
Okay.
And yeah, we had through the nights, it was a full moon for or 99 and then 100 and then it waning at the end, which was an incredible experience to not be in complete darkness and to have a big moon over you out there was incredible.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit about the weather that I found in El Hierro, the last race that I did. It was incredibly hot for a competition. So like to be running for that long in such a warm weather, it must be like super challenging in terms of heat management, hydration, and nutrition, and everything. That's cool.
Totally.
I think one of the most difficult parts that you found is this challenge was the navigation and the technicality of the trail. From the movie, it's pretty clear. Not getting lost was one of the main things, especially during nights. And also some parts of the trail were really technical. You call the trail unrelenting because like it doesn't give you any solace, basically. I remember, for example, when you were running on the Razorback ridge, it was like a super rocky and steep ridge on this gorge. Like it's really technical for being a 230 or more kilometer trail. Did you expect it to be so like difficult to run? And did you feel like you were prepared for it, or was it of course it was a big challenge, but probably more than you expected?
Absolutely. I was blissfully unaware, I think, of how technical and challenging and unrelenting this trail was. We had to push back the date we started due to weather, and we went out and actually recce'd some of it. And by some of it, of 230 kilometers, I saw 5 kilometers. But I was like, oh, this gets me like a good idea. I saw probably the best 5 kilometers of it. And it was, I think, when I look back on it, I think for 230 kilometers, and side note, I ran 250 kilometers because I got lost for a half
Yeah.
marathon there. And it was it
It
was
was the
incredible.
bonus.
Yeah, more miles, more smiles out there. What's a half marathon in 54 hours when
Yeah.
you're running for so long?
So the
I
final
think
time
that,
was 54 hours, right?
correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's 2 days and 6 hours. Wow.
Yeah. And I slept for 3 minutes in that.
Yeah.
So I think that what challenged me the most was the technicality was just for so long. And I think that physically I was fine. You know, I've been training for like 10 years to kind of be able to take this on. But the mental side, to be so mentally aware of picking where to put your feet and to navigate and to eat and to drink by yourself in the hot heat. I mean, no one should make a decision when they're really hot and bothered and covered in flies and dehydrated. Like, that's just not a state to be saying north, south, east, or west. And so I think I just mentally fatigued so early on, because I wasn't prepared to be so switched on and to have to keep pulling out my phone and having a map and navigating. And what I actually found, you say the night scared me the most, but navigationally, it was the easiest to get through because my headlight would look up the hill and I could see the trail markers light up and reflect. So I kind of was like, that's the gist of where I'm going. I don't know if I actually take the right path, but it's all rocks, who cares? And then at night, also, one of the beautiful things that I found about running at night, and this is what my dad says to me quite early on, is when it goes to night, nothing else matters. The mountains black out, there's nothing to distract you, and all you have is your little bit of light from your head torch. And that's what I needed. I needed to just focus on taking that next step, because when I looked out in the daytime and saw the mountains ahead of me and the distance that I still had to go, it was so overwhelming that, you know, I felt like for the whole 54 hours, I had an angel on one shoulder and a devil on one shoulder. And the angel was like, you can do this. This is great. Just eat, just drink, one step at a time. Go, Lucy. And then the devil on the other shoulder's like, you're pulling out right away. You're so stupid. What are you doing? This is dumb. People are going to think you're crazy. You're going to hurt yourself. You're not good enough to do this. And the mental capacity to listen to both voices and to choose positivity for that long. I don't say that I chose it the whole time, but that's what really kind of took all my energy. And I don't think it's something you can train for until you're in that position and you're kind of going, oh my God, okay, I got this. Take a deep breath, Lucy. You know, let's just chill out a little bit.
Yeah. Did you do any like a longer run or sort of preparation? I don't really know how you can actually train or prepare this type of events, but like, did you do any similar training not on the Laura Pinto Trail, but on a similar terrain that maybe you have close to home?
No. So let me tell you, this is something that I wish was more portrayed in the film, is that going into this project, we were in lockdown, and in Melbourne, Melbourne, Australia, we were allowed 1 hour of exercise 5 kilometers from home. And I live not in the mountains, nowhere near a trail. So I was running just the roads for 1 hour a day. So I was doing 7 hours of running a week. Like, that is not enough to train for a 230, 50 kilometer run.
Yeah, definitely.
But my coach, when I said, I want to do this and I'm going to take any chance that comes with the lockdown easing, he said, you know, Lucy, when you go past that kind of 100K distance and you're choosing not to race, okay, you're just choosing to complete it, it's less about being fit and it's more about being uninjured and being stoked. And this was kind of like such a key for me. I'd had all this time off from not racing in 2020. And I was like, I'm not injured because I haven't been able to outrun myself. And I was stoked because I was finally doing something I was passionate about and was super excited about the people, the place I was going. And it doesn't matter what your VO2 max is when you're doing that, or what pace you're hitting on your 1K efforts. No, that's not important. What's important is that you are loving what you're doing, and you're doing it because you love that moment that you're in. And so I was focusing more on mentally being ready, because I was not physically ready.
Yeah, and so mentally you felt like you were ready, and of course it was challenging, but eventually the angel on your shoulder prevailed on the devil on the other shoulder.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I think, yes, maybe the difficulties of the pandemic and the period before doesn't show much in the movie, but it's definitely something that one can consider when we think about the period that you've done this challenge. That's another cool thing about the project. Can you take us through the logistic aspects of this challenge, and also the movie making and direction and the filming and everything?
Yeah, so the logistics of getting to Alice Springs and getting to the Larapinta track is that I flew 3 hours to Adelaide and then drove in a car with the two boys for 2 days up into the middle of Australia. So we got into our third state or territory in Australia, and then we spent 2 weeks there. We were meant to do the run in the first week, but with the weather we couldn't, and so we ended up postponing to the second week. And then the logistics of the run was that Josh and Brian, so Brian was the videographer, Josh was the photographer, but they also had to wear hats of crew member, friend, kind of communications. They were like everything.
Yeah, I think that shows really well in the movie, and it's something I wanted to ask you later.
Yeah, they were incredible. I mean, I think they were more exhausted than I had the easy job, to be completely honest. But so I saw them every 8-ish hours due to just kind of being able to get into the track and them not having to hike for days on end to find me. And so they saw me kind of 3, 4, 5 times. Josh joined me for the second night because I started to hallucinate quite badly.
Yeah.
And then we drove the 2 days back home after finishing, and then flew the 3 hours back to Melbourne. So it was quite a condensed 2 weeks. And then the filmmaking process, initially this film was meant to be 8 minutes. It was meant to be this real short, punchy Salomon TV, I think more aesthetic was what they were after. If you look at Salomon TV, it's genuinely Killian or Emily or Anna Frost or Ricky Gates, and it's beautiful and it's told really well. But when I was looking at the footage and I was talking to Brian, I was like, I feel like there's so much more here. There's so many parts of this story I want to tell, and I want to make sure we do justice to what is Salomon's first Australian film. And as an Australian athlete, I'm super proud to be able to front that. But I kind of said, there is more to this. And so it kind of just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And Brian would pull out a new memory card and stick it in. And we were like, oh, that's really important. Oh, we need to show that. And, it was kind of getting bigger and bigger. And I was like, this is going to be like a full film. And it was kind of one of those beautiful things where Brian was super passionate and really like, this is good stuff. Like, we need to show this. And I was like, got to make this happen. And Solomon came to the party and said, yeah, like, go wild. And, we've still been in lockdown through the editing process. And so Brian hasn't had a bank of work that he needed to do. So he was able to work lots on it. And I was obviously just sitting around doing nothing apart from some jogging and recovering. So we kind of just let this beautiful thing flow and kind of grow on its own. And it's really incredible to from 8 minutes to 43 minutes. It was quite a jump.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know that. So basically, like, Brian and Josh only saw you for 4 or 5 times over 230 kilometers.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Because I thought like yeah, most sections were probably 40 to 50 kilometers that you were running before meeting them again, right?
Yeah, it was kind of like that. That's exactly right. It was like a marathon to 50 Ks.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like when we were talking about terrain, when we started, it was quite mountainous. And so that was quite slow going. And then there was a middle section that we thought that would be quite fast. And we were told by a lot of the locals, they were like, oh, this is all like riverbeds, quite easy running. You'll be sweet. But like I said, there was lots of rain. And so those riverbeds became rivers. And so there was no running. And in fact, I was swimming. So
Yeah.
I swam for up to 3 kilometers through one gorge.
Ooh.
And I was, yeah, well, you would know with your swimming practice what that's like.
Wow. Fortunately, you're used to it, but you know, it's
Yeah, I got my Ironman in,
a big
really.
challenge. Wow.
So I would swim holding my phone above my head because I didn't have everything in a waterproof, and I would just use my arm and doggy paddle my way through. But a lot of sections took a lot longer than we envisioned, especially towards the end.
Wow. That's impressive. That's super impressive. And how did you manage the hydration and nutrition through all the sections of the trail?
Well, not very well. If you watch the film, not super well.
Yeah, there's some parts
um,
that definitely I didn't want to tell our listeners in advance, but it was a kind of struggles in some part. But like, did you have a strategy? Did you have something planned, or were just of course, maybe you made some mistakes because, for example, in a part of the movie, you thought you didn't need water. Well, actually, it took a lot longer than you imagined, and you would have needed more water to cover that section of the trail, for example. Was there a strategy or something planned, or was you know, a little bit unplanned?
I felt like I had a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And just like in every ultra I've done, my plan has gone amazing for maybe 5, 10 kilometers, an hour, maybe 2 hours if I'm lucky. And then it's kind of like thrown in the air and been like, you know what, whatever will sit in my stomach is great. And so what kind of turned out happening was that I was carrying kind of like spring energy gels and muesli bars and maybe like a wrap or something with me for the 8 hours between seeing the boys. But what I found really was good was that when I saw the boys, they always had like a hot curry or oats or something just warm and normal food. And I wasn't moving fast. So I could eat a pizza and I would just walk off. And I was like, all right, see you in 8 hours, guys, you know?
Yeah.
And I kind of loved that. I loved that it wasn't like really like sugary and just like, well, we need to just pump her full of sugars to keep her through. It was kind of like, I want to like nourish myself through this because this is not a race.
Yes.
So we kind of, yeah, the strategy turned into I would have like something real wholesome, really feeling quite dense with the boys. And then I would kind of tried my best to keep up with something to eat on the way. But when you're navigating and then you're trying to like run and put your feet in the right place and you're trying to like focus on all these other things, I really found that nutrition kind of went to the last point, especially as I started to not be hungry. But yeah, you know, I was kind of, when I could see water, I would fill up and drink that water and do my best, but it's not the best laid plan. And I wouldn't suggest to anyone to be as like meh about it. But I also kind of like, it's very me to do that. I've done that, I think, at Western States. I've done that every race I've done. I've been like, yes, I'm going to have a gel every 45 minutes. And then it gets to like, you know, the second 45 minute, I'm like, nah, I'm good. Like, I really don't want that.
Yeah, but you know, like as you said, this was not a race, and then this is you. Like you wanted to do it your way, so it's understandable, and I mean, there is, yeah, you can improve, of course, but it's part of the experience, I think, and that's another cool thing about this project, I guess.
Yes,
Um,
I had a lot of watermelon, that's for sure. That was my non-negotiable.
yeah, that's also very Lucy's style. There's also a couple of other themes that I think really stand out from watching the movie. One is the relationship, the friendship with the filmmakers Brian and Josh. And I think it started way back, way before this project was born. So can you tell us a little bit about Brian and Josh, where your friendship started, and also the fact that you picked two men to be out there with you, like there was not another woman on the team. Like, how did that make you feel? And why did you just pick them to come with you?
Yeah, I love this question. So I met Josh and Brian on a hiking trip in Tasmania, so the little island that comes off Australia. And I met them in January. So we did this project in March. So we didn't know each other all that much. And
Oh,
we
okay.
spent 10 days hiking in Tasmania together. And then between the two projects, I was like, when are you free? I want to do this run that I mentioned to you on the hike. And you both were kind of like, oh, that sounds cool. It wasn't like you were like, that's a stupid idea. Good luck with that. It was like, oh yeah, like I'd love to, I've never been there. I'd love to shoot it. And I guess I'm a huge believer in people come into your life for a reason, a season, or the whole thing. And I felt like on this hiking trip, when you're hiking and you're walking for days on end, people are broken down to their true selves, and you can see through the BS that you kind of get bombarded with in life. And I just had these conversations with these guys, both Josh and Brian, at different times where I could be completely honest and completely myself. And when the hiking sucked, I said it sucked, and they'd share their food with me, and we'd kind of just, I don't know, we just worked together as a team, and we'd walk together. We could talk about absolutely nothing for hours and hours on end. And I guess I just had this intuitive feeling of like, your vibe attracts your tribe. And these guys, they get me. But it was definitely risky. When we packed the car up in Adelaide and we started driving, I was kind of, as we drove off, I was like, wow, I really hope these guys can put up with 2 weeks of us all together. But it was just the most beautiful thing. It was when you back something like that, and when you just remain true to yourself and you're honest and you communicate, they were all things that we really we all sat down and was like, right, this will only work if people voice concerns, raise issues, have each other's back, and just like we all had our role and we all backed each other into that. I'm not going to tell Brian how to shoot a video. He's not going to tell me how to run. And it was just an incredible thing. I think what's interesting is that Brian had never seen an endurance event. He'd never seen something like running like this. And Josh comes from more of a road running background. And so when things hit the fan and I look visibly distressed and awful, they kind of were like, oh, you look great, keep it up, you're doing good. I guess this is just like part of the thing. Like you look a bit crap, but you'll get better. Like it's fine. And I think it's so interesting. Like when I watch the film, if I was in their position, I would have pulled that person out. Had it been me, had it been my friend, I would have been like, oh my gosh, we're
Just
getting off the trail. You need to stop. And, my dad, he watches the film and he's like, when Brian called me and said you were dehydrated, he did not paint this picture. And I think that, because I couldn't see myself and I was just looking for their reaction of me. And they were kind of like, oh yeah, you're good. Yep. Oh, sweet. We'll just get you some water, change your t-shirt. You'll be good. I think that like watching the film back for me is like an incredibly weird experience, because in that moment, I didn't feel as bad as I looked, but I thought that if I looked that bad, they would have stopped me. And so it was like this incredible relationship where I had all my trust in them. I was like, oh, if you think I'm good, I'll keep going. Great. Like I'm obviously fine. And, they were so incredible with the way that they put on all these hats and learnt all these things, and four-wheel drove into these places in the night and set up fairy lights so that I had something to see in the distance, and then heated up some curry on the stove at 2 a.m. and minimally slept, and also managed to capture this all on footage. So they were just incredible human beings and people that I know will be in my life forever. And I'm just so incredibly grateful. And then on the side of having not a female in the team,
Yeah.
I think, I've openly spoken about on social media that I get along with guys a lot better. And I always have. It's always been, I think, with my brothers. And I've always kind of been able to not have that competitiveness that I find that can be in the female. It's in the male space as well, but for females, it's a lot more behind the back type thing.
Yeah, probably for men, it's most of the times is more open and it doesn't run behind the curtain like for a lot of girls. And
yeah. And if it was in front of the curtain for a girl, I love communication is like the happiest thing for me. If someone says to me, I have a problem with this that you do, or if you can just like, can we talk about this? I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like, this is great for me to grow and learn and like maybe talk about why I do things the way I do. And the reason why we shifted the time that the project started, one was the weather, but two was because I had my period. And I was kind of like, oh, do I like tell them, or do I just kind of go, yeah, it's raining a lot, like we should not go. But I was like, no, guys, like I have my period. We've got like 4 days that we're just like, this is not going to happen. And the way that they responded to that was like, cool, no worries. Like, we'll get that you're like, might be a little grumpy here, and we'll just make sure you got lots of food on hand. And it was kind of like these barriers were broken down of like, we got your back no matter what time of the month it is, what day of the year, we're here for you. And I haven't felt that and been as confident in that kind of situation, but there was kind of no other option. And I loved that.
Yeah, it's really cool. Thank you for these words. And it's pretty incredible to like see how, because I think like the bonds that develop on such a hard effort, such a wild experience in some ways, are like super strong, and people are actually revealed for what they are in their inner self. And like to think that you've only knew Josh and Brian for maybe 2 months before the Lara Pinta is pretty incredible. And it shows like how much you can trust people, how much they can inspire you, and just be able to back each other, as you said, and empower each other. And I don't know, it's just a great feeling that it gave me thinking about the movie, and also listening to your words. It gives like a kind of hope in humanity when we see a lot of bad things happening all the time. The competitiveness that you talked about, also in the sport, it's not always easy to get along with athletes and with all the people related to the sport. But this is like a story of simplicity and just friendship that shows clearly and is stronger than everything else, I think.
Yeah. And I think it comes across like I lead a lot by my heart. Like, I'm a completely honest and raw person. And I think that, like, this is the first time I'm meeting you. And here I am just being like, this is everything about me and what that experience was like. And it's because when you radiate trust to someone and they respond with openness and like they'll listen to you talk, I'm sitting here watching Zoom and being like, man, he's like totally letting me speak my truth and listening to me and asking questions and genuinely interested. And like, that's the beautiful thing when you find someone who's like, I actually care about you. I actually want to know how you're feeling, what you want to do, what are your dreams, what are your goals. I'm not going to tell you you're stupid or crazy. you know, like whether it's virtually or in person, that is so incredible. And I think that there's a lot of those people in the sport, but they tend to be the quiet ones listening, not the ones yelling on social media. And I think that's like, there is really good in humanity. It's just that, yeah, the loud ones are usually not the ones.
Yeah, it's thank you for these words. Like sometimes it's so easy to judge people and judge each other's, while we should, you know, remember to just listen to each other and be genuinely interested in what we do and who we are. Um,
Totally.
so this is another great part of the movie that I think, besides the, you know, the challenge, the nature, the running part, is a really cool thing.
Thank
And
you.
another thing is, that kind of stands out is the relationship with your dad, which you also mentioned during this talk. Your dad has clearly been very important for your running career, and also for your development as a person, probably. During the movie at night, you call your dad on the phone, and while you were like kind of crying, and he says, "Stop crying, you're wasting water." And it was like a kind of funny story that I wanted to mention. um like, what does it mean for you to have such a strong relationship with your dad, and you know, to have done 100K with him? And what was, for example, his impression, his response, um, about this challenge?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fully aware of how special it is to have such a connection with my dad. I know some people are not so lucky, but the Lyra Pinter was actually, well, not the Lyra Pinter itself, but for me to go and do something really long, but chasing back to my original curiosity and my passions, he kind of said, Lucy, you know, I was in a really bad place in 2019. I raced Western States, but I wasn't present there. I wasn't super into it. I completed it, but I didn't love it. And it was really challenging for me. I then pulled out of CCC at UTMB and kind of had to tell people that it was, you know, it's a mental health. Like, I'm fine physically, I've got no injuries. It's just that my head and my heart are not in this. And so I think that when we went into lockdown in 2020, I had an opportunity to be locked into four walls with my dad, but also to kind of just reassess and think about what I want to do and if I wanted to change things up. And he was kind of there to soundboard and to listen to things. And he kind of said, you know, I think you need to go back, like way back, 10 years back, and just do something that excites you and scares you and you're passionate about and you want to do and you want to be there. And, you know, when I call my dad in the film, I'm 30 kilometers in. So essentially I had 200 kilometers to go. And I call him the first time. So I actually ended up talking to him twice on this one ridge that I knew from the locals that it had one bar of reception. And just before that, I tripped and I fell the first time that I fell on the track. And I cut my hands, cut my knees, cut my face. And I remember getting up and the dusk and looking out and seeing that I was just in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, what on earth am I doing? I can't do this. Like, should I just go back 30 kilometers and try and get hold of Josh and Brian and get out of this? And I instinctively, you know, my first thing in life is call dad. You know, it sounds like the young girl's thing to do, but I was like, I just need to hear him because he grounds me and he centers me and he just knows me. I wouldn't listen to anyone in the world say what he says to me. And he said to me, you know, he said, Lucy, it's going to get dark soon. And whenever you've raced and it's been dark, you've loved it. You've loved that it's made everything else disappear and you focus on your next step. And to hear that from him, I was like, all right, I'm just going to get through this first night. And he said, if you stop at the end of the first night, you've achieved an amazing thing. You've seen some of the trail, you've done something cool. You can have a sleep and go back the next day, go back and just start again the next day from that same point. And so I got through the night, and then I also called him when I was dehydrated. And that's when he said about stop crying, you got wasting tears, you're wasting water. He was like, if you're going to cry, lick the tears up, like whatever you got to do. But it was kind of, he was sitting on the couch at home with our puppy, and he was just like, I can't do anything to help you here, Lucy, but I can tell you that it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, one of my favorite sayings in the world is Hakuna Matata from The Lion King. It means no worries. And I think that we forget that running's cool, running's great, but at the end of the day, on your tombstone, is it going to say the time you ran the Golden Trail Series, what position you came, what time you did the Lara Pinta in? No, I hope it says, she smiles a lot and she made people happy, or she inspired. And I think that for him to say that, it was kind of like, oh my God, Lucy, like get out of your head and get into your feet and just move through this like you know how. And yeah, like I say, there's just no one else that could say that would bring me to that kind of understanding and to listen to it. But yeah, I'm forever grateful for the 60-year-old man who seems to be by my side all the time, even when I'm so far away.
Yeah, that's super cool. Thank you for covering this as well. In the movie, there are also parts of a podcast that you recorded with Dylan Bowman, which is Pillars, where you mentioned that you've thought about quitting the sport, probably back in 2019, 2020, as you said, quitting the sport and like living what many would define as a normal life, like go to university or get a 9-to-5 job 5 days a week. But there is something that keeps you pulling towards the outdoors, the nature, trail running, and probably your real nature and personality, which I don't think you can just decide to put into silence. Do you feel like you want to, like, you have unfinished business in the sport of trail running? Like, what are your dreams and self-expectation concerning racing and future projects related to trail running?
Yeah, I think, whenever anything gets hard, I feel like there's always that slither of a thought of, should I just stop? Like, should I not do this? And I think, when I've met my school friends at their 18th and then their 21st birthdays, and they've all become lawyers and doctors and these certificates coming out of university. And every year I've rocked up to these parties and been like, yep, still running, and it's like, what have I got to show for this? Like, why am I doing this? And I think that, what keeps bringing me back is that if I never had to race another day in my life, I would continue to run. I don't need racing. I don't need bibs. I don't need trophies, and I don't need sponsorships. What I need is people to run with, places to visit, and that like healthy, sustainable, and unwavering love for what I'm doing. And I think that, moving forward and after doing the Lara Pinta, I realized that that's what I'm going to chase. I want to chase the things that set my heart on fire and, could connect me with people that I would never otherwise meet and go to places that I would never otherwise go. And I think that that's kind of, I don't know what the future holds. And I've signed up for Western States 2022,
Cool.
which is both terrifying and exciting. But I want to put a bib on again. I want to be competitive and I want to run fast, but I want to be healthy and I want to be happy. And I think that, that's my ultimate goal. And anything else is kind of the cherry on the cake.
Yeah. When if being happy coincides with the racing and winning races and performing, then it's great. If not, it doesn't really matter. And like, I'm very competitive. I love racing. I love putting myself into challenge, and maybe sometimes even too much. I push myself. I, just also maybe try to prove people that I'm good at it and I want to perform. But I also feel really, really strong the part that you mentioned that is a lot more personal, and it's just between you and your inner soul, basically, at the end of the day, as you said.
I think you do an amazing job. You know, whilst we haven't met, I have seen you around and I've followed along. And I think that what's important is that athletes can be super competitive and they can put their heart and soul into racing. But you've got to have other passions, be that the environment, be that podcasting, be that whatever. You know, you need to, I think it's so important to just kind of have different avenues. If you like putting on projects, if you like talking and connecting to people, I think that, you know, solely basing your value on your competition, your pace, your time is just, I mean, you have a finite time of racing that you're going to be probably getting that top pedestal. Enjoy it, but then prepare for what's going to happen after. Because like me at 25, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And it's like, Lucy, your life's just beginning. Like, don't worry, you know, it's fine. And running will always be a part of it. In what way? I don't know. I don't mind. But yeah, it's kind of, I think I just want to show that you can, you know, like I've written a cookbook. I want to put on projects and make a movie. I want to coach at Vert. I want to put out messages of positivity about the way you look, the way you feel, and about being healthy. And, you know, someone like yourself, you do that in a different way, but it's just as awesome because it connects other people. And that's what's going to build the sport, is because we're interesting people. We're not just fast people.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing to be able to build connections and like help shaping and creating this community around trail running. It's not just about results and how fast you're racing and running. That's cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So I think we're going towards the last part of our chat, and we've got some users questions that our Instagram followers dropped us. So I would like to cover them a little bit. Some of them are about the Laura Pinta Trail, and some of them are like more general questions. I'm going to start with a question that I had from my side, actually. What does Laura Pinta mean? Does it have a meaning? Like, where does the word come from?
Yeah, so the Laura Pinta is the indigenous word for the Finke River, which is the river system that we follow in that West McDonald's ranges of the Northern Territory. So it's for the Finke River, which is usually completely dry. So it was incredible to see, you know, when the Finke River floods or is full. For the indigenous, it's a sign of prosperity and growth and new beginnings, which I think is just so beautiful considering what went down on the Laura Pinta.
Cool, thank you. Then we have a question: how do you keep going when everything hurts?
Oh, I think there's a little bit of stubbornness that definitely sinks in. But I think coming back to that why, you know, like I was prepared that this was going to be challenging. I didn't know how challenging, but, you know, it was my curiosity. It was kind of like, wow, when you're this tired and you're this far in, you're this deep into this challenge, where does your brain go and where does your soul go? You know, where to next? And I think it's a great privilege to take yourself to that point and to see how you respond. Because I mean, yeah, not many people tap into that deep of their being.
Yeah. How did you recover from the Laura Pinta, and how long it took you?
Yeah, so I didn't recover super well, to be completely honest. When I ran the Laura Pinta, I then got in a car and drove, like I said, 2 days back to Adelaide, got on a plane, and that's just not ideal for anyone. Yeah. So my legs just puffed up. My stomach was not okay with what had been going on. So I'd probably say for at least, I think for 4 weeks, my body was like, oh yeah, we're okay. But my mind was like, we hate running and we're going to need a bit longer. So I think I tried to run and I was like, I can do the act of it, but I don't feel the excitement and the joy of it. And I really wanted to be really mindful. We were in lockdown. There was no pressure to jump back into things. So I think I got into swimming and some cycling and just kind of enjoyed the other aspects of life and movement. But I'd probably say it was kind of, I'd say I'm still recovering from it, to be completely honest. I think it sticks around. I've listened to so many podcasts on sleep and how, even just getting 5 hours instead of 8 hours sleep is like the thing that'll kill you most next to no oxygen. And, for 2 nights, I didn't sleep at all except for 3 minutes. And I think about what that did, to my endocrine system and my hormones. And on that deeper level, then I got a little sunburnt and a little dehydrated. I mean, there's a lot going on. So I think that's going to take a little bit to come out of, but it's been awesome to have that opportunity to just kind of put my hands in the air and go, body, you do you know what to do. And I'll let you guide me.
Yeah. Give yourself time is super important after, a big race, a personal challenge, whatever, like a big effort. Your body needs time, and it's probably more than you actually think you need. So it's
always,
it's great to kind of be in this type of perspective that you are in. Then we have some questions concerning tips for training in the heat and humidity, and how did you survive extreme dehydration?
Yeah, okay. So tips for the heat is kind of, I always focus on the things, and this was the same going into like Western States, which is a race renowned for its heat. For me, I've always focused on the things I can control and the things I can't control. And so things like weather are things you cannot control, but people are obsessed with talking about the temperature and looking at their phone and predicting the future. And I think, like, for me, I'm like, all right, I've got my effort and my attitude, 2 things I can control. My effort being how much effort I put into preparing myself to stay cool, my nutrition, my hydration, the clothes I wear, the hat, the sunglasses, how I prepare myself. My attitude is, instead of, I believe that the psychological way that you look at weather and you deal with adversity is so important. So if you say to yourself, oh my gosh, it's so hot, I can't do this, I'm getting like fried out here. Of course, your body's like wants to put you to a standstill and lie you down in a bag of ice. But if you're kind of saying like, I'm good, I'm okay, I'm just going to make sure I keep eating, keep drinking. Oh, there's a river, I'm going to put my hat in there, cool myself down. You have this attitude of like, you're good, body, we're sweet, we're happy. You can put a smile on your face to physically do something. But your effort and your attitude are kind of 2 things that are your superpowers. When you have things like weather and humidity, there's only so much you can do. I mean, the best runners in the world aren't doing anything but eating, drinking, and keeping cool themselves. It's not rocket science. And then what was the second question?
Like, how did you survive extreme dehydration?
Oh, same thing. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
all right, what can I do? I can try and find water.
Just do my best. Yeah.
Do my best. And it was kind of like, you're going to be okay, Lucy. Like, just positive self-talk, and just, like, focus on what you can control. You can't control that you have no water, so don't worry about it. Stop telling yourself how bad that is.
Yeah. Any regrets on not stopping to sleep longer to help with the navigation?
Yes. So sleep deprivation and that kind of thing was totally new to me. And I had no method or process or plan. You talk to people like Courtney DeWater, and she's kind of got these micro sleeps, and she's trained her body that she can kind of have a 30-second nap and it feels like a few hours. And I didn't do that. I kind of just went into the point of like, I cannot go no more. I will collapse and fall asleep. And that's not smart, because if you nap earlier, you're probably going to have a lot more. Because once I did nap, I got up and I ran instead of walked. And it was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this earlier? All it takes is 3 minutes. And I'm like a new person with a little more range in my legs and a spring in my step. So I would definitely have naps, like even just a minute in the first night when you're kind of like, oh, I'm still good. It's like, just stop for a second. This isn't Formula One. You're not like pit stop and straight out. It's like, take a minute, take what you need, close your eyes, center the body, shut down the mind, and refocus and then go again. So I would definitely adjust that.
Cool. Then like we have a question, how many kilometers did you do without seeing anybody, and how much water were you carrying? Like you said, you were basically doing between like around the marathon for each sections of the trail. How much water were you carrying with you?
So I was carrying 2 liters, so 4 500 ml flasks, and I knew that there were sections that I could fill up my water. So between those 8-hour sections, I was probably drinking like 3 liters, which kind of felt like a lot, but it was never going to be enough, you know? So, yeah. And then in the section where I screw up, it's like a liter, and it's a bad time.
That's because you were expecting to find more water on the trail though, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. How do you break out of the self-doubt through patterns and smash the challenge? Difficult
Smash
question.
the challenge.
Yeah.
I think it takes 10 years of really challenging situations, being in moments, so many races where I've not met my expectations, where I've had self-doubt, where I've had to, instead of looking at it as a failure, look at it as a learning. And I think that, you know, it's kind of like running downhill, right? The more you do, the more you're in that situation, the better you get at it. And I think that the more times you put yourself in uncomfortable situations, which make you question life and question why you're doing this and the direction you're going, the better you get at kind of going, cool, like that's a thought, and that's something that like my mind is conjuring up. And I can either believe that and take that as the truth, or I can also question it and maybe even reject that thought and say, like, actually, that's not true. Like, I am strong and I am ready, and I'm not in like a terrible place I'm never going to come back from. And I think that, you know, when I did that Western States in 2019 and I had incredible self-doubt, incredible low self-esteem, incredible challenge ahead of me to run 100 miles feeling like that, when I finished that race, I was like, nothing will be as hard as that. To stand on a world stage and to put yourself through it, and then to finish and read comments about yourself, which were just totally so inhumane and incredibly rude. You know, you can choose to believe that, or you can choose to reject it. And I think that like when self-belief comes into question, it's up to you to kind of say, I know me, I know my truth, I am who I am, and nothing else really matters. And I can control the thoughts that come in and the thoughts that go out.
Thank you. Thank you. That is a super nice perspective. Then we got a couple of more general questions. One is, what do you do on days you don't have the desire to get out there and run?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, it's a fine line. And I think any athlete will say that you do have to sometimes just say, when I get out the door, it will be good. You know, like I can do this. I know that I'll feel better when I come back. And you always do. Like, I very rarely have I come back from a run and been like, well, that was a waste of 30 minutes or an hour. But then there is a time and a place to be like, you know what? I haven't slept well. I've been pretty stressed. I really don't want to do this. And I'm going to choose to honor that. And I'm going to choose to rest in order to play another day. And I think that that's a really important decision to make. And it's something that you need to sit with. You shouldn't feel guilt for missing a run, and you shouldn't feel like you need to make up for it later or something. You know, you have to be content with your decision. And I think for me, what I usually do is this 10-minute rule. It's kind of something I just made up and I've stuck with for 10 years now. And it's like, I'm going to get out, I'm going to put my shoes on, and I'm going to run for 5 minutes down the road. If after 5 minutes or sometimes 10, if I'm still being like, ugh, this is the worst, then I'll turn around and I'll go home. And so I've run for 10 or 20 minutes. And that's something, that's a brick in the foundations of being an athlete. Usually after 5 or 10 minutes, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of like loosening up, feeling better. Wow, what a beautiful day. The sun on my skin, the air in my hair. And I keep going. And it will be however long a run it feels like it should be. But kind of that 10 minutes is just like, I've given myself an opportunity. I've given myself the space to either grow into it or to be like, well, it's not happening today, but at least I did something. And I think that's kind of something I've always lent on, is like, if it's a 10-minute run, it's still a run. There is no minimum distance, time, or pace. Just getting out the door is a win every morning.
True. So give yourself an opportunity. Nice perspective. Last question. How far do you let Kenny running with you? Kenny is your dog, for those who don't know.
Tani is good for about, she's probably really good for 5 kilometers. She gets very tired at 10 kilometers. She, when we got her, we thought we had the running dog. We thought she was a bit of Kelpie, this cattle dog, really running athletic dogs. And we were like, she's going to run ultramarathons with us. What it turns out when we got the genetics test, because she's a rescue, is that she's not those running dogs. She's actually Rottweiler, which is probably one of the laziest dogs. And so, you know, me and Dad, we drag her out for a little half an hour jogs. And just, you know, I went for a run with her the other day on some hills, and she's never really run on the hills. And it was the most joyful thing I've ever experienced. I was just so in love with watching her sheer joy for running, and then get to a hill and be like, we're going up that? Like, I'm done. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. So we've got to the end of our conversation. I'm super happy. Like, it was a great learning experience for me too. Like, we do the same sport in some ways. You're a different athlete, a different person from me, but I felt like really rewarded and inspired by this conversation. And I hope it will inspire our listeners and our community in Vert. So thank you again, Lucy.
Well, I can't thank you enough. And I'm so stoked that I finally got to connect with you. And, you know, maybe one day I'll do a short distance.
Yeah. Thank you. And awesome. Keep following us, and have a nice run. Have a nice day, everyone. Bye.